And we're joined by our regular expert rugby analyst on Absolutely Famous today, former Marlborough and King Country loose forward Greg Brimble. Well, Brims, hi mate, everything well down in Nowra there?
Going good, mate. Yeah, going good. Come off a couple of days of some big sport. Especially the Matildas last night as well. Geez, I love watching. Oh, I'm in love with women's sport at the moment, mate. I'm just loving it.
The whole world is, mate. The whole world's in love with women's sport, including me. Fantastic. Yeah, good effort by the All Blacks last week. I mean, what's the best thing to come out of it for you from the Dunedin Test match against the Wallabies?
Oh, look, I think it was a good, solid hit out. The best thing to come out of that for me, I think, was an improved Aussie performance, which was good to see. I thought they really dominated large phases of that game, and that was great. But I think, if anything else, it probably confirmed that some guys aren't ready for the World Cup, John.
Yeah, good call.
And I think that probably there would have been a few lines gone through and a couple of ticks, and it's probably confirmed pretty much what they were thinking anyway, to be honest, I think, John. But yeah, look, I think enough said of that game, because it was just frustrating watching it, wasn't it? It was, but good on the Wallabies. I think they're progressing nicely, mate. I think they're growing nicely as a unit, and we're going to see big things from that young team.
Yeah, agree with you totally. The All Black squad, of course, always exciting when a World Cup squad gets named, and the All Black squad, I personally think it's an outstanding squad. A couple of questions maybe, but what about yourself? Any surprises for you and the team?
No, I don't think there's any surprises there at all, John. I think it's a good, strong team. It's a good blend of youth and experience, and if I may quickly, I was looking at the amount of caps. There's nearly 1,500 international caps in that squad of 33, and there's an average cap count of 45 per person. So there's some good depth there. Astonishingly and surprisingly, in a way, the locks the lock combination makes up for 330 of those nearly 1,500 tests. That's the four locks in the team, and they average 83 caps each, John. As compared to our props, we only average 25 tests per prop, and in the outside backs it's even less than that. And amazing, this would be the least amount of experience we've ever taken to a World Cup. They average 10 international caps per player, the outside backs. So, that says a lot in the faith that the selectors have got for these young players, and they've picked them on form, which I like.
Yeah, same here.
Apart from Caleb Clark.
Yeah, well, Caleb's obviously a bit lucky, isn't he, that they chose to take an extra outside back rather than an extra forward, which surprised me a little bit, because with Brodie Retallick's injury, he's out for about 5 or 6 weeks, so they've left themselves, maybe that's why they've taken Sir Penny Finau over with them, just in case somebody does go down.
Yes, some puzzling in a way, some of the balance. And again, I was looking at some of the numbers, in the outside backs and the loose forwards, and the loose forwards especially, which has a high attrition rate. If you take into account the number of players they've named in that position and how many can take the field, and I've used that as a formula, then the loose forwards has 166% cover. All right, but in the hookers and in the props and halfbacks and fly halves, there's 300% cover. So I would have thought experience would have told us that, and I'm sure they know better than me, but experience would tell us that there's always a high attrition rate in the loose forwards, especially at World Cups, and we've seen that before. So I would have liked to have seen maybe another loose forward in there, and maybe 5 props instead of 6 props. John, you can only put 2 on the field at a time.
Yeah, I agree. Well, they normally use 4 in the squad, don't they? They have a couple coming off the bench.
In the squad, but you can only have 2 on the field at one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and get what you're saying, but I thought 5 would have been enough cover. But I'm sure they've got it right, and they've taken a couple of extra players with them as cover. Sam Penny-Finau and one of the other ones, which I can't remember his name.
George, what's his name, the hooker? George Bell from Canterbury, and Brad Weber.
Brad Weber they've taken as well as cover. So good to see Cam Roigard get a run in there. He's only got 2 appearances under his belt, but I think he's the right man. Big, young, fit. I like that big halfback, almost like an extra loose forward, John.
Yeah, I think Finlay Christie would have breathed a huge sigh of relief when he got the phone call, because Brad Weber to me is I would have gone for him, but luckily I'm not the selector.
Well, I think the difference for me there, and on current form, I would probably put Weber and Finlay Christie about even at the moment. They're quite similar, nippy little players. But I would have taken Brad Weber for his leadership qualities and what he can bring from a leadership and experience point of view, John. Especially given that you've got one other very inexperienced halfback in Cam Roigard. So I probably would have gone for Weber as well, mate.
Yeah, Joe Moody obviously just ran out of time with his injuries, I think, and it's good that Tamaitai Williams got a run, because he's a star of the future, and this will be a great baptism for him.
Well, he is, and I mean, there was 3 players, as I understand, and I'm sure you may correct me, but Ethan Black added Joe Moody and Braden Enoch weren't considered because of injury, but there were some other probably near misses as well that were available but didn't make the squad. Sean Stevenson, Sam Penny-Finau, who's going as cover anyway. Dallas McLeod, who I think's got a great future, but probably just wasn't enough room for him in the squad there. Brad Weber, as we've discussed, and Flower Whakatava, who was unlucky to miss out, but he was probably never going to make that cut either. We've got a wealth of halfbacks in New Zealand at present, so yeah, interesting balance.
I think one thing that's hugely different from last year, Brims, is the All Blacks seem to know exactly how they want to play, and they're playing like it. And I think that is magnified in the way they've selected this team. They've concentrated on having big, strong scrummages, a strong line out. That set piece is crucial, and punching over the gain line with the ball in hand straight ahead. They've picked a team to do all that stuff.
Yes, and forwards with particularly good ball skills. And you look at big blokes like Tamaitai Williams, who's got really good feet, but he's got good ball handling ability, good ball skills as well. But isn't it interesting? I think in years gone by, we've probably picked the best available players and gone, right, what can we do with this team? What should we do there? But it's interesting now, isn't it? We've got a formula, we've got processes in place, and they've selected those players that will fit into those processes and that game plan. And I like that. I really like that. And I like that Foster stuck to that. And I'm really excited about this squad, John. I think it's a great team. And I'm looking forward to see what they can provide. And I'm sure you are too, because you're going to be there in the stands watching.
I'm going to be there in Paris on Saturday, September the 9th, along with 84,000 others, most of whom will be French, and it'll be the highlight of my rugby watching career up to that date. You just harking back a bit, Brims, you mentioned about the direct way we're playing. I thought that was illustrated pretty clear on Saturday when Damien McKenzie's first half, he was a bit like a moth around a light, wasn't he, all over the show. And as soon as Moanga came on and Smith, there was a directness and the up-tempo of the game was just, I think that's how we want Foster and co want them to play.
You could see an immediate shift, couldn't you, John, as soon as those players took the field. And I've got to say, I wasn't all that impressed with Damien McKenzie at first 5'8". I don't really like him at first 5'8", John. I prefer to see Damien McKenzie coming on 15, 18 minutes to go and bringing him on further back outside with a bit of space. I think that's where he's most effective instead of as a tactician leading us around the field. So I think that was proven as well. And I think the other thing was proven as well, just how good a halfback Nuggie Smith is.
Oh.
You know, it's just the difference he makes. It was incredible. And one thing that probably saved us in that game was the strength of our bench, because we did have effectively a B team playing, not to take anything away from the Australians, but it was effectively a B team. And once we brought some of those regular, more experienced players on, the tempo of the game certainly shifted, and the directness and the accuracy as well, I think, was noticeable.
I love the fact that we've got three or four young props, and when Fletcher Newell came on, like, the guy hasn't played for, 6-7 months, and he just came out there and just smashed it.
Well, he did, didn't he? You're probably a bigger fan of Fletcher Newell than I am, to be fair. I think he's probably one of the luckier players that he's made the squad. Not based on his ability, John, but based on how much rugby he's played this year, probably. And he's only 23 years old. He's still got a lot of time in front of him. So, a lot of those props don't really mature until they get to that late 20s, that 30 years old sort of thing is when they're at their peak. So he's got plenty of time in front of him. But having said that, if you're going to take 6 props, I think, he probably had to be one of them. And like you say, with Tamati Williams, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can bring. Don't know if he'll make the first 15 there or the first 23, but a player of the future for sure. Big man.
Yeah, definitely. Well, harking back to Newell, I think he showed his class over in South Africa last year on his debut when we beat the Springboks in Johannesburg, I think it was. I mean, it doesn't come any tougher than that, and he passed that test with flying colours, and I think that's what they've looked back at.
Well, you got to say the Fletcher Newell and Tamati Williams are fortunate that they've been selected probably instead of Joe Moody, and Joe Moody has certainly created a gap there for someone. And the other one that can probably count himself lucky there is probably Ofatuanga Fasi. Nipo Leolala's been playing very good this year, but Ofatuanga Fasi can probably count himself lucky as well. But like I said, we've got 6 good props, and they're fit and they're taking the field, and I'm really comfortable with those selections, John.
Yeah, and of course we've got the game against France. France lost a warm-up game in the weekend, but I don't even take any notice at all of that. And if France get beaten 50-0 one week, you can guarantee they'll go the other way the next week. So it's very hard to predict how France will go in that first game.
Well, I wouldn't be reading anything into any of these warm-up games, least of all the All Black Springbok game in London, Johnny, and I'm sure nobody's taken too much notice of that. I certainly didn't, take any too much notice of that. I think it was Scotland-France, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Game. I didn't take too much notice of the result of that and wasn't too interested in even watching the replay, to be honest, because there'll be a bit of tinkering. Teams we know are certainly not going to be risking their first 15 and their top players leading into this World Cup in France, because it's going to be brutal. The game has turned very, very physical, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And there's going to be attrition, and there's going to be some, a lot taken out by friendly and unfriendly fire. So we're not going to muck around with these games that don't mean anything now, I don't think.
No, I noticed in the itinerary, the All Blacks, after they got France on September the 9th, then a week later Namibia on the 16th. Then there's a 2-week break till they play Italy. So that 2-week break, that could be crucial if they've got a couple of dinged up players. I think that's a pretty good draw for me.
Yes, it's you would say that they're going to put their best side on the field for France, obviously, their strongest 23. They're probably going to play their effective B side or second 15 against Namibia.
And Uruguay's the last game too.
Shouldn't pose too many problems. And Uruguay might be a bit of a mix-up sort of thing. But, and I think most of the teams will be doing the same that have got those weaker teams in their pool. We're not going to risk injury to these players at this stage of the season or leading into these lesser teams, weaker teams that we're going to meet in the World Cup. None of the top tier teams are going to be doing that.
No, I reckon the All Blacks will play their top team against France and then against Italy, and after that there's the Uruguay match, and then we're into the quarterfinals. And from the quarterfinals on, of course, it's your strongest team every week.
Yeah, for sure. I think you did right there, John. I think, most of the teams will be doing the same sort of thing.
I've got to. It's really good. There's a certain atmosphere. The body language around the All Blacks at the moment is so different to what it was a year ago, and the coaches, the demeanour, they're all smiling, they're all happy. I think one thing they know, there's no guarantee they'll win anything, but at least they know they've got the cattle and they've got the ability to beat anyone.
Yeah, well, there's a happy, positive vibe there, isn't there? And I think, dare I say it, the All Blacks and the coaches have probably taken the leaf out of the Black Ferns book as well, and they looking at the team harmony and the spirit within the team and how important it is that they're gelling off the field as well as they are on it. And there's some and they're out there and they're building confidence in each other all the time. They like being round themselves and with each other, and I think that the professor did that exceptionally well with the Black Ferns in the World Cup last year, and really showed what is possible when you can build that culture within a team. And I think we're seeing a lot more of that in international sport these days as well. Could you imagine back in the day Brian Lahore putting a bit of doof on the stereo in the changing room? And it's I mean, you look at the way they do it these days, they're all mates after the game, aren't they? They're all, they're bashing each other 1 minute, 2 minutes later they're standing there hugging each other and having a laugh with each other,
which is great.
Which is great. But the game's changed a lot as well in this professional era.
It sure has. Well, Brims, I'll better start packing my bag soon. Off to France. Can't wait for the tournament. Thanks again for your expertise. Always love talking footy with you.
Thank you, mate. And I wish you and Cheryl and the rest of your team all the best for your visit to France. I'm sure you're going to have a wonderful time. Probably come back 10 kilos heavy. You'll have to run a couple of those marathons again, mate. But don't worry about it, I reckon. Don't worry about it. Just soak it up, get into it.
Absolutely. Thanks, mate. Awesome.